Today we're going to talk about the power of truth. Truth is something that has many levels to it. There's God's truth and then there's our truth. Everybody has their own truth, which they think is true. And sometimes it really isn't. When God created the whole world, the whole universe, he showed his great humility by consulting even with the angels, who he didn't really need in order to be able to create the world and to create human beings. But he said, let us make man. Right? And then he said to the angels that he was going to give man the Torah, which is his way of life. And the angels argued with God. They said, you shouldn't give the Torah to man, because man is untruthful. Man is going to sin. Man isn't going to keep the Torah. He's going to go against the Torah. He's going to rebel against you. Torah is something to keep in heaven, not for man. And the teaching says that God took the angel of truth, the Malach HaEmes, and he threw him to the ground. Threw him down. How could he do such a thing? This angel was the angel of truth. The angel was not capable of speaking anything except the truth, and the angel was right. We see God has gone against the Torah. That man has gone against the Torah, excuse me. So what's going on here? Well, the truth is that there's a higher truth than what the angels knew. And that higher truth is only God's. God certainly knew that man was going to go against the Torah. He knew that. He knows everything, even before it happens. But in his ultimate wisdom, his truth was that I'm going to give them the Torah anyway, despite the fact that they're going to do that. And he had his reasons for it. You see, we're going to talk about truth, and we're going to see that when the first man came, Adam HaRishon, in the beginning, there was absolute truth. But then what happened, after he sinned, after he ate from the one tree that he was not allowed to eat, because back in those days, they didn't have 613 mitzvahs like we have today. He only had one commandment. There were many delicious fruit-bearing trees in that garden. But the one that he was told he couldn't eat from, he couldn't help but eating from it. And when he was caught, God came into the garden and he said to the man, Ayeka. In other words, where are you? And we know that God certainly knew physically where the man was. He was hiding in the bushes. Right? Ayeka, the question of where are you, really refers to where are you now spiritually? Are you going to go forward with this type of a life of sinning? Or are you going to come back to me and live the kind of life that I want? Because if you do, I will forgive you, and you can still have a very good life. Adam gets up and he says to God, he speaks to him directly. He says, I know I sinned, but the woman that you gave me, she gave me the fruit, and it says in the Torah, Vayechel, which means, I will eat it. Now, that doesn't make any sense. Adam is saying, the woman that you gave me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and I will eat it. No, he already ate it. Vayechel is the future tense. What Adam, we think, was trying to say was that he ate it in the past tense. Not true. The Kotzker Rebbe says that he was bothered by that word, Vayechel. Why is it the future tense instead of the past tense? And he answered the question saying something that has profound implications for our understanding of truth and what God expects of us. Vayechel means that he wants to keep sinning. He wants to eat more fruit in the future. He tasted it. He enjoyed it. Now he has a desire for it. And he wants to continue eating more forbidden fruit. In fact, he wants God's endorsement at this point that it would be okay for him to continue eating that forbidden fruit. Of course, which God wouldn't give. But what God loved about Adam's confession, what made it so refreshing to him and so different than most of the confessions that he hears, is that he was being truthful. He was saying, part of me wants to continue doing this, but I'm talking to you, God. I'm addressing you directly because I know you exist. I believe in you. I know you're all powerful. I know I did something wrong, but I do need your help in being able to rectify it and to fix it. God looked at Adam and he said, this is the true path of return, according to the Kotzker Rebbe. So we see that God doesn't expect from us perfection. He doesn't expect us to be on the level of his truth. He didn't even expect the angels to be on the level of his truth. And the angels were incapable of saying anything except the truth, the level that they had. Right? So God is very lenient in this sense. And he gives man the free choice to decide if he's going to tell the truth or if he's not. Truth is a free choice. Right? We're not able to tell the ultimate truth. Okay, if we tell the truth that we're capable of telling, if we're truthful and honest with ourselves to the ability that we're capable of being, that'll be enough. That's enough for God. So, when we learn about truth, we understand that it's here to help us to have certainty about the ultimate truth, which is that God is running the world. He does everything is coming from him, and everything he's doing is for the best. Everything he's doing has a purpose for the whole world in general, a purpose for each one of us individually. And by seeking the truth, which is what Yisrael is, Yisrael, or Jacob, before his name was changed to Yisrael, after he beat the angel of falsehood, he beat the angel of his brother, his evil brother Esau, he became the essence of truth. We say, Titain emes liYaakov. Titain emes liYaakov means giving truth to Yaakov. Yaakov is truthful. And Yaakov is the founder. He's basically what the Jewish people are named after Israel, after Yisrael. So a person who wants to seek the truth has to know that he needs to kill the doubts that he has about God, about God's kindness, his loving kindness, the promises he made to our forefathers and to the prophets. A person has to be able to get rid of the false ideas that he has about himself, that he grew up with, the limiting ideas that you have about yourself, that perhaps you were given by parents, teachers, other people. Every kid writes a script when he's young. He comes to conclusions about himself when he's very young that have a way of sort of sticking with a person even later into life. And we have to have a way of dismantling the falsehoods that have been layered and layered within our psyches, and to be able to reach the truthful self, the real self, which is within us. And we're going to outline now a path by which we can get to the truth, get to the soul, get to the real essence of a person, which is the royal road to the soul, so to speak. We're going to talk about this. The idea of doubt, though, is very central to the Emunah coaching method that we use. We need to eliminate doubts. Doubts about God, doubts about ourselves, doubts about the true purpose of life and the individual mission that each one of us has. You know, the enemy of the Jewish people, Amalek, if you spell his name, a nation Amalek, if you spell their name in Hebrew, it has the same numerical value as doubt. Probably the personification of Amalek, of that evil nation, was the person of Haman. If you know the story of Purim, which is not too far from, it's coming up, Haman was an evil person who wanted to destroy the Jews. Persian, leader, King Achashverosh, his top guy was Haman. He had a diabolical plan to wipe out all the Jewish people in 127 provinces, that were under the rule of King Achashverosh. And on Purim, why do we celebrate? We celebrate because, without going through the whole Purim story, the end of the story has Haman hanging by his neck, and Mordechai, the hero, the Jewish hero, is promoted and gains great favor in the eyes of King Achashverosh. So on Purim, we kill Haman Amalek, which is Suffolk, which is doubt. And as a result of that, we're happy. When we take away all of our doubts about God, doubts about ourselves, doubts about our true purpose, we're happy. A happy person is a person who has a secure mind that thinks clearly and has absolute certainty. 100% certainty would be the best. Okay? If we don't have 100% certainty, that's okay too. Remember, God doesn't expect us to be perfect. But we're moving towards truth. We're seeking truth. We're mavakshin. We're seeking and we want to know the truth. God looks at that. He says, okay, even if you don't have all the truth now, I'm not going to judge you by the fact that you're, only holding 2 or 3 out of the 10, say. I'm going to judge you by where I see you desire to be. You desire to be all the way at 10, not just at 2 or 3 or 4. And that's the great chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the great chesed of the Master of the world. So, our father, Jacob, who was named Yisroel, and we're named after him, he personified truth, and he actually made himself into truth. How did he do that? When his brother, who personified falsehood and evil, was coming to kill him with 400 warriors, trained professional killers. It says that he went over the Yabok River and he took all of the things that he had, all of his possessions, all of his wives, his children, and so on. And Rashi, the great commentator on the Jewish Bible, says that Yisrael made himself, that Jacob made himself into a bridge of truth. Now, how does a man of flesh and blood make himself into a bridge of truth? Well, it wasn't a physical bridge. He made himself into a spiritual bridge. And by understanding how important truth and honesty is, each one of us, the seed of Jacob, can get over the bridges that are difficult in our lives. We can get over the troubled bridges, the bridges of troubled water. We can cross them with truth. You can learn to make yourself like him. And as Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says, his famous saying, life is a narrow bridge. The main thing is to not be afraid. Imagine a narrow bridge, a walk bridge, that you walk over. The main thing is to not be afraid. Well, if you have the truth, you won't be afraid. As narrow as that bridge is, you'll traverse it confidently, courageously, and with faith, with your faith. Now, what is the royal road to the truth? We're talking about what it is, but how do we get there? Well, that's really what Emunah coaching is all about. And I'm going to give you some numbers at the end of today's lecture about how you can contact us. The royal road to the truth is through speaking. Speaking words of truth. Talking to a coach, to a professional coach about what's really going on with you, about your feelings. Talking to God, learning to talk to God about your true feelings. Talking to yourself and being honest with yourself with your true feelings. And talking with the people in your life. Your wife, your husband, your children, your workers, your fellow colleagues, your friends and neighbors. Being truthful as much as possible with everybody and in every situation. This leads you to God, because God is, we say, Chasam HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Emes. The seal and sign of the king is the truth. Hashem, every king has a stamp, where he stamps his proclamations and then he sends them out into the provinces. Well, the way God signs his name, the way his stamp says, truth. That's how he signs his name. It's interesting, isn't it? Because God has he's the ultimate of everything. He's not only ultimate of truth, but he's the ultimate of kindness, the ultimate of love. Why doesn't he sign his name love? Okay? That's a question. Needs exploration. Truth is how he signs his name. And we pay attention to that. When a person speaks words of truth, since a person has the capacity for intelligent speech, unlike animals that do not have it, they can make incoherent sounds and grunts and moos and, neighs and so on. But a person who has intelligent speech, when he speaks the truth, he's creating spiritual vessels. And these very vessels are now able to receive divine favor, abundance, and divine protection. So, we learn that when people speak the truth, words of truth, they're honest about their anger, they're honest about jealousy, your anger's honest about lust, and you're confessing it to another person, that the words of truth that you're creating create vessels, and those vessels create openings in the darkness that are surrounding that person. The darkness that's surrounding that person is coming from all of the falsehood that person has been thinking, and the falsehood that person has been speaking and doing behaviorally in his life. And the more the person has been doing those things, the more darkness is, and the thicker the darkness is around that person. But regardless of how dark it is, the truth creates openings. It creates exits through which a person can then go out from the darkness, go out from the falsehood, can escape from the darkness and escape from the falsehood. So we see that speaking the truth is the way to get to your real self. It's the way to get through the layers of falsehood in the personality of a person. Because living in a world of falsehood, a world of sheker, and olam ha-sheker, we pick up a lot of falsehood. A lot of people were raised in an atheistic culture. So people therefore don't have the truth from the beginning. We were socialized without truth. We developed psychologically, emotionally, intellectually without a lot of the truth. And so a person has all this false, idealized aspects to his personality because the false self basically develops as a result of the falsehood around and the falsehood that the person is internalizing. So by coming to look and clarify by being honest and clarifying and looking to understand and go through a separation process, which we call a birur process. But the birur process, the separation process, is separating truth from falsehood. And as we take off the falsehood, we get down to the sort of like the core, right? If you imagine an onion, you're pulling off the outer layers of the onion until you get down to the core of the onion. And then that's the real person. That's the essence of a person. And that's released now. And it's released with all its abilities, all its powers, all of its creativity, all of its emunah, all of its God-given, built-in faith that it has in God, and that it has it in itself. And as the person gets introduced to his real self, he begins to believe in himself, which is exactly what God wants. He wants us to believe in the true good self, because deep down, everybody, without exception, is very, very good. There isn't anybody who isn't very, very good, deep in the core, So we're going to get there through a process of using our intelligent speech and our intellect. And usually it works better when you have somebody else helping you. It's sometimes hard to do alone. And through this process of being open and honest and disclosing, and having a trained person being able to ask you the right questions so that it takes your attention deeper and deeper into more and more truth, it sets you free. The truth sets you free because the truth is God. And God can set you free like nothing, like nobody else can set you free. Remember, God is the truth. That's how he signs his name. So we speak, we clarify, we speak openly, we speak spontaneously in front of an emunah coach. The more spontaneously that we speak in front of an emunah coach, the less rehearsed that we speak, the less that we come in with a prepared speech to say to the emunah coach, the more we're going to be able to get deeper into the unconscious of a person, which is where a lot of the falsehoods have been, hanging out, so to speak, for many, many years. And they're separate, they're repressed, they're outside of a person's awareness. By speaking fast, by speaking spontaneously, by trying not to edit what we speak, we bring unconscious stuff up to the surface where we can now examine it with the light of truth, with the light of the conscious mind, and with the light of the knowledge that we have about what's true and what isn't. And we can compare and we can say, hey, is this the truth, or is this the real truth, or is this, just some kind of made up truth or rationalization or justification that I've been living under, some kind of misunderstanding or falsehood that I've been living under for many, many years. So we make what's unconscious in the unconscious mind, we make it more into the conscious mind. And then the person has control. You have more control. How do we learn, to think bad things about ourselves? How do we learn to believe falsely about our own capabilities, our own potential, our own, it happened so early in life that we can't even remember. There's a story that illustrates this beautifully about a baby elephant. There was a baby elephant in the circus. And when he was a baby, they used to tie him down. They put a big rope around him and they tied him. They staked him down to the ground so that he wouldn't run out of the tent. And, in the beginning, he would try very much to pull loose and to become free. But after a while, because he was a baby elephant and he didn't have the strength, he gave up. Right? But when he grew up, he became a big elephant. Now he's big and strong. And with one tug, he could probably pull the stake out and pull the entire tent down with it. But the sad fact is that they'd take that same rope and they'd tie a huge, mighty elephant down with it, and the elephant doesn't even make any attempt to pull himself out because of what we call learned helplessness. From something he learned when he was a little baby elephant. He learned that he was helpless against this rope and this snake. And now in the big elephant's body, he's got the same childish thoughts, that he's helpless against this little rope and this little snake. And that's basically the story of many people that I've met over the course of almost 40 years of doing counseling, of being a licensed psychotherapist here in Israel and in the United States, New York. Learned helplessness. Learned helplessness. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman who learned to feel a certain way about herself when she was also very young. It started when she was 2 years old. That's when her biological mother passed away. And her father remarried, and a very wonderful, loving stepmother. But when she entered school, this little girl had the feeling that she was different from all of the other girls. Because all of the other girls had their own biological mothers, and everybody knew that her mother died. And it really weighed on her. It made her very self-conscious about herself, that people knew that, and she had an anxiety that people were looking at her. Well, she was able to overcome that anxiety. God helped her. And he made her into a very bright little girl, and someone who had leadership capabilities. And she was also a talented actress and singer and dancer. So she was the star of all of the school productions. And so she compensated. God gave her the ability to compensate for her self-consciousness and her feeling different in this way. But nevertheless, that feeling of being different, that conclusion that she came to, that she was inferior, that she was different, that she was less than the other girls because her mother died, that was still in her unconscious mind. That remained in her unconscious mind, and it wasn't healed for many years. She had found, yes, a way of coping with it. It was a beautiful way of coping with it. It was a way of survival. But it wasn't a cure. God had a plan for her. God's plan was that she should certainly not go to the end of her life to live out a full life cycle of 120 years and leave this world still feeling a false idea about herself. God didn't want that. But God has his own timetable. Things unfold not according to our schedule, but according to his. And so it wasn't until this young girl grew up and became married, and of course, because she was so outgoing and so bright and so popular, she was able to get a great match, a great shidduch. But it wasn't until she was already married and had, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 children, that all of a sudden she started having these outbreaks of blushing, uncontrollable blushing in social situations, and all kinds of other symptoms of anxiety that are coming along with the blushing, a fast heart rate, and feeling dizzy and nauseous. And she had absolutely no idea what was triggering this off. So, by entering into a process of introspection, a process of self-honesty, and talking, and wanting to know the truth, and being able to speak about what happened to her when she was a little girl, which is not an easy thing to speak about. It's not easy to speak about these early traumas. But by being willing to do that, she was able to get to the truth. She was able to know the truth. And then she was able to learn some tools, some very simple tools that she was able to do on her own, to be able to free herself from the blushing attacks. And this truth that she discovered made other things in her current life much more understandable to her. For example, she understood, she had she had another area where she felt embarrassed, where she felt different, and that is that she had a son, her oldest son, who was not yet married. And in their community, they reach a certain age where the boy is not yet married, and, she was embarrassed because other people could see, hey, your boy's not married yet, and other boys his age are already mostly married. It wasn't that he wasn't a good boy and that he couldn't, that there weren't other girls that wanted to marry him. There were plenty of girls that wanted to marry him. But the girls that wanted to marry him were not, in her mind's eye, suitable for her son. And she was waiting. And nevertheless, the point is she was embarrassed. And she felt people looking at her. So, with Emunah, with faith, she was able to understand that this was another wake-up call. She had 2 wake-up calls that God was giving her to tell her, okay, you've been a success all this time, but now you're 35, 37, and I want you to fix this thing that I created for you when you were a little girl. God, for whatever reason, needed to take that mother away for reasons we can't understand. But now the girl needs fixing, And by her making the effort to fix herself, she gets a spiritual correction, and she gets a great reward here and in the next world. So God gives her these 2 wake-up calls. One, all of a sudden she starts having anxiety attacks. She's blushing and she has no idea why. After 37 years, she thought she's long past that trauma. She's absolutely sure that the loss of her mother when she was little has absolutely nothing to do with her blushing attacks now, right? Because all of this was buried in her unconscious mind. And number 2, she can't marry off her son, and she's feeling embarrassed, and and so this causes her so much discomfort between these 2 things that God is nudging her. This is God's way of nudging her and getting her to seek help, call us up. She calls us up, and she makes the corrections. So this is basically how it works, Another example of somebody who was very young, who didn't suffer from learned helplessness, but actually learned Emunah at an incredibly young age, was a paraplegic. Not a paraplegic, actually, he's a person who has no limbs at all, no arms, no legs, right? He just has a stump and a head. And, and he felt so discouraged when he was young because his parents said, you're never going to get married. That was their truth. Right? That was their belief. That he would never get married. And he bought into that belief initially. And it made him sad. In fact, it made him suicidal. He felt he was suicidal from thinking such a thing. And moments before he was carrying out his suicidal plan, moments before that, all of a sudden, God gave him the truth. God gave him the truth. He put an idea in his mind. He said, no, I can get married. And so he pulled himself together. And he bought himself a pair of shoes, right? And he put his shoes in the closet. People might have thought that was funny. What does he have a pair of shoes in the closet? He's never going to wear shoes. But those shoes were his hope. Those shoes were his emunah, his belief that he could have a normal life. And ultimately he got married. And he married somebody, and he became a famous speaker, and he goes all over the circuit speaking to people and giving them hope and strengthening them and letting them understand what the truth really is and what you can do when you really know the truth. That whatever God gives you, whatever your lot is, you can be happy with it. Whatever it is. That God in his infinite wisdom gave each one of us exactly what we need to be happy. And he didn't need arms and legs to be happy. He didn't need to hold his wife's hand, because as he said, he could hold her heart. So, you see, the truth is an essential thing. This is the pivotal battle that everyone goes through in life. It's the pivotal battle. Truth or falsehood or arrogance. This is the seesaw. It's the seesaw of life. It goes up and down, up and down. You might imagine it also as Jacob's ladder, the ladder that had, its feet on the ground, but its head in the heavens. And as you go higher and higher in Jacob's ladder, you get closer and closer to the truth, because you're getting closer and closer to God. When you're lying in the mud on the ground at the bottom of the ladder, what you see is mud. All you see is the physical world, which is limited, which is the limitations of logic, limitations of science. Science is a great thing, but it's limited. It's not the whole truth. Logic is not the whole truth. Faith begins where logic ends. So all day long, we're going up and down the rungs of this ladder, depending upon how truthful we are, or how much we're fooling ourselves. So we say that this is a world of falsehood. It's an olam hasheker. Sheker means falsehood. And kesher means connection. It's interesting that the word for falsehood and connection are the same letters in Hebrew. Isn't that interesting? The very same letters in Hebrew, rearranged in different ways, spells sheker, falsehood, or connection, kesher. What is the message here? The message is that we can't be connected to falsehood anymore. We have to break our connection to falsehood. We have to break the connection of kesher to sheker. And how do we do it? I've outlined today just the rudimentary steps, which has to do with verbalizing and being brutally honest with ourselves and with anyone who's helping us, and in our personal prayer to be brutally honest with God, as Adam, the first man, was, and he was able to achieve a level of repentance that most people can't. Why? Because most people are trying to skip over the truth and say, hey, God, I'm so sorry. I did that bad thing. I'll never do it again. Please forgive me. I'll never do it again. And God looks and says, that's not the full truth. I know that you really still want to do it again. I know that part of you, like Adam, also still wants to do it again. You're not there yet. You're a work in progress. Be honest about it. Be honest about it. I can see the future. I can see what you're going to do in the future. So don't tell me that you're going to never do it again. Be honest. Part of you does. And that's essentially the idea here. We have to work. I told you that I would give you a phone number, and I'm going to right now. You can call this number toll-free anytime between 2 in the afternoon and 11 o'clock in the evening, Israel time. So you check your time zone and see how many hours difference there is between your time zone and Israel. But between 2 and 11, you can call us between 2 and 11 Israel time at area code 718-577-2975. That's area code 718-577-2975. Push 1 for English and speak to Aaron. He's waiting at his desk. He's there from 2 to 11 every day. If you want any information about our coaching programs, either as a client or if you'd like to become a certified Emunah coach yourself and you want information sent to you about our professional coach training program, there are 4 levels: certification with a diploma, suitable for framing and prominent display, signed by myself and the head of the yeshiva, Rabbi Shalom Arush. Give us a call. Speak to Aaron at 718-577-2975. If you'd like to consult with me personally, he has my schedule. If you'd like to speak to my distinguished and esteemed colleague, Rebbetzin Yehudit Hanan, he can also give you an appointment with her. I want to bless everybody, wish you all the best luck in all of your endeavors. Anybody who needs a refuah, who needs a recovery from illness, should have it. Anybody who needs parnosa, who needs a livelihood, who needs more income, you should be blessed to have that. Anybody who needs consolation of any kind should have that consolation. It should be so. And we should soon see the coming of the true Messiah. And he's coming soon. And watch with our own eyes as he builds here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, the third and final Beis HaMikdash, Holy Temple. Amen.